okay?
Sure.
People lying in court, all right? There's no really legal punishment, okay? They bring up perjury, for instance, all right? And perjury is not a crime I can pick up the phone and call 911 for. It's a
Great
crime
point.
that the judge, if they decide to, they can press charges. Look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Press charges, and that almost ruined the guy's life. Imagine if we did like grape like that, you know?
Hello there, it's Aaron from Edge Radio Australia. Today is a very important episode of Community Focus, a program that we put out to deal with the issues that people should be talking about in certainly the opinion of most out there, but unfortunately are not. It's not something that's covered a lot by the mainstream media, and it's something that it really covers the fabric of society. So it's very important that we do talk about these issues because, well, communication is the key, isn't it? We tend to improve things and make lives better for people when we actually communicate and come to some sort of compromise or understanding. So let's jump straight into Community Focus. And the gentleman I have is all the way in the beautiful US of A, is Bashtian Justice. Great to have you here, Bashtian.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, mate. We might have a little delay there, but we'll work on that. No problem. Good old technology. You can't beat it. Now, I'm very, very happy to have you here, mate, because you are a gentleman in the US who is very much standing up for what I see very much as fathers and predominantly in a lot of ways children's rights, because of the fact that the epidemic of fatherless homes, of the alienation of children is such a massive issue that it is not just an Australian thing, most definitely. It's very much a worldwide problem. We have a lot of people from the US reaching out. So if you can just give me a bit of just give me the elevator pitch, if you like, mate, of what you get up to there in the US.
Myself a music quality advocate. Okay, I look at things, you know, that's affecting men, children, etc., that is kind of unequal or damaging society, all right? And I've been doing this about 4 years, and the thing I find funny is a lot of things you hear compared to the truth are two different things. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a design system to divide people, I've noticed. And something I thought was interesting is, you know, you hear a lot, you know, like how women are unequal, etc., whatever, you know, through feminism, but you never hear a men's side. And when I opened that book, I seen some things that I thought were quite crazy that you wouldn't hear, and you don't.
Well, yeah, so true. I mean, I'm going to step right on the front foot of this one. I think that feminism in its current form is an incredibly destructive movement. I think that it was obviously very important in the first place because men and women are equal and should be seen as equal. But to be frank, that isn't the case anymore. In fact, feminism's changed to the point now where it has got complete control of our legal system, our social systems, and obviously politics, and obviously also goes into the financial sector because of that, the flow on of money from the political class. So I'm not a fan, to put it mildly. And what we're going to probably touch on today and talk about is, you know, the absolute justice rather. And I'm sorry, I know it's your name, Justice, but I don't see it as a justice system. I see it as a legal system. I see there right now, because of this toxic side of modern feminism, that it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic of false accusations that take place. That so many people through the court system are, you know, literally living horrendously horrible lives, and this is affecting men and children very, very, very deeply. What is your take on what's going on in the legal side of things?
Well, I guess we can hit on perjury as well. We'll start off with this, okay?
Sure.
People lying in court, all right? There's no really legal punishment, okay? They bring up perjury, for instance, all right? And perjury is not a crime I can pick up the phone and call 911 for. It's a crime that the judge, if they decide to, they can press charges. Look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. As charges, and that almost ruined the guy's life. Imagine if we did like grape like that, you know, if someone gets grape, they can't call 911, but if a judge hears about it and decides to act on it, they will. That's criminal, you know, and that's kind of how the.
Sorry, Bashtian, you're breaking up there, mate. We've just lost that last what you said. If you could just repeat that. All right. Can you actually hear me there, Bashtian? Okay.
Yeah, I just turned my Wi-Fi on. I just got my Wi-Fi running through this instead of my 5G, so we shouldn't have no more breaks anymore.
Okay, great. So, okay, from the point of view of perjury, you've just brought up a great point. And people want to feel empowered. Now, if there's a crime taking place and somebody's being injured, somebody's life's being destroyed, people have this perception they can pick up the phone, they can call the police, they can call the system, and they'll actually be looked after. Now, in the case of perjury, you're absolutely right. What happens? It is up to the judge to make the decision whether it's pursued. Now, here in Western Australia, I don't know what the Australian figures are, but I certainly know in Western Australia, very big state here, we actually, the number that our former Attorney General, if you like, who was looking after state, what he was saying is they pursue 2 cases per year, right? And that is so they can say that they look after multiple cases, just the 2. Now, the reality is that a lot of judges have come out and actually spoken about this. A lot of people have obviously spoken about that. And perjury appears to be very much, a family court judge here in Australia. He said that false accusations were, he considered to be around 80%. 80%. Yes. Now, imagine if you're in a position where you can't defend yourself, where you can't call 911 or 000 here in Australia. You can't call someone, you can't get the police in there because it's up to the judge there to make that call. And they don't make that call. So where is the justice in that? Where is the fairness in that? And where is the equality in that?
Yes, and you want to talk about fear or being scared as a person. All right, like you think you're so scared because there might be a weirdo on the street. Imagine when the law is a legal weirdo and just tortures whoever with the false accusation. And that's something, for instance, that's built up in many things, family court, just normal court. Many people's lives have been ruined. There was a study done by John Davis through the FBI. It found 97% of rapes were reported to be false accusations. Various studies might say 50, might say 90, might say this, might say that. But regardless, we can all agree it's a growing problem. All right. And they don't want to put penalties out for that. And the funny thing is they're raising more and more punishments for this stuff. But when you really look at the original crime of rape, for instance, it was back then pressuring someone into sex or forcing someone into sex without consent. It's not that anymore. For instance, India. In India, if a man marries or proposes to a woman and they have sex during that relationship, and it gets called off, he gets charged with rape, and he gets, can face up to the death penalty. And they have really schemed charts and different things like that. Like they'll turn the definition of something. For instance, in some countries, rape cannot be done by a man or a woman. It's only penetration. And they keep skewing things up and messing on stats. Another big one with this, with sexual assault, is all the men that are sexually assaulted, they're counting towards women's stats. So you don't have an equal divide. Who's really the monster? It's all making men look bad. That's another thing.
And what you've said is absolutely bang on. And the problem that I've certainly discovered in Australia anyway, and again, I'm sure this is very much a worldwide problem, because it seems to, interesting enough, the same issues seem to be happening in every country. It's almost like a movement has been, sort of, I don't know, unfurled, if you like, at the same time. So in Australia, when a man actually makes goes to the police, and let's be frank, it's such a traumatic thing for a man to do because of the social standing of things and the social shame of things. And I'm not for 1 second am I advocating for any sexual assault for either gender, right? It is horrendous wherever it happens to be. But for a man, the great social shame is a big problem. And I can tell you right now that the police in Australia just don't care, and they won't actually pursue cases of sexual assault against when the man is the victim, when it is a woman versus a man. Even we've had a few lately, and it just seems to be a bit of a changing trend of teachers, female teachers, sexually abusing their students, these young boys, and the penalties are just minute, if there are penalties at all. So if we're talking about this great dream of feminism, if we're talking about the fact that feminism is supposed to be about equality, where's the equality?
Yes. And something else, if you notice, okay, if a male teacher gets, caught having sex with a minor, it's grape. But if a female teacher does it, it's sex with a student. They label it. And also look at the comments when a female teacher does it. It's not wishing horrible things on her. you know, compared to a man. It's wishing sexually mutilate them and not saying all these horrible things. And it's like, how do you solve a problem if you only look at one side of it? And here's the other thing with that, right? Okay, how much of this is really even going on? I mean, it's being, you know, turned and changed, you know, from one thing to another. And the legal system is honestly trying to throw out due process to where you can't even defend yourself from it. For instance, the UK, this is a different, like a domestic violence or whatever, but the UK found Johnny Depp guilty. He came to the United States and we were all laughing at how innocent he was. Because in the UK, they have certain laws set, and probably Australia too, because it's also quite feminized, or, you know, filled with feminism, that you can't present certain evidence. You know, you can't show anything to make your accuser look bad, you know, and the courts are becoming more of a, you accuse someone, they're automatically guilty. And in today's world, that's worse than murder, because it's legal murder.
Of course it is. Now, I'll tell you something that I was sworn to secrecy about, but I'm not great with the secrets when it comes to inequality and double standards. I spoke to the officer in charge of a large station here, a police station in Western Australia, one called Midland. Now, Midland is an interesting area. It's got a very mixed demographic. The officer in charge of that particular station, I mean, it's quite a big role because it is one of the big stations and quite, as I say, a large population to cover. The officer in charge there said this to me. Now, I'll paraphrase a little bit. I've actually got the original text elsewhere. But essentially he said that the reason, whenever the police go out to a domestic violence situation, he has instructed all of his officers to, no matter what, always take the woman's side, always take the man away from the situation. And I said, but hang on, why do you do that when you're well aware that, okay, sometimes, like there was an instance where a man got beaten up with a cricket bat. Cricket bat for our US friends is basically like being thumped with two baseball bats at once. It's a doozy, right? And this guy had been beaten really, really badly with this cricket bat by his former partner. Long story short, this guy actually was charged with breaching a violence restraining order for being beaten up on his own front lawn by his ex-partner. Now, I'm talking about this and other issues with this particular police officer. He said to me, he said, you've got to understand, it is career suicide for us to not take the feminist side because the feminist movement is so powerful. And he said that we have a really big issue with our younger cadets and our younger police officers for this, because the feminist power is so strong that if you take the man's side, if you remove the woman, if you charge the woman, your career is over. And then he went on to tell me that that's what he instructs everyone to do. And he said, if you repeat this conversation, if you subpoenaed me to court and I was sitting there on the witness stand after I've sworn in the Bible, he said, I would commit perjury. I would say this conversation never took place because going against feminism has so much power in that community that my career would be over. And he said, I've got a family to feed.
Political suicide is what that's called. And what that is the coming out for men is, you know, a politician's suicide. Because if you come out with, you know, out for men, you know, there's a big target on men right now. It's really used to increase funding, domestic violence, you know, sexual assault, family court, and to the point that it's so built up, it's like a tower, and they're just all going off of each other, and they're each getting money from each one of these levels. So if you challenge that and the thought they're trying to brainwash everyone with, you'll get destroyed. I mean, they'll put charges on you. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the guy too much, but Andrew Tate, for instance, I mean, look at him. He didn't do any of those crimes, etc. But just because he stood up for boys, they destroyed him, you know. And now he's facing more false cases.
I'm not a fan myself of Andrew Tate. I think some of the things he says rather is utterly ridiculous. But I do also see there's positives because he's trying to create men to grow up, or boys to grow up to be men of integrity and strength. So, yeah, look, unfortunately, he's going to be one of those divisive figures. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm not with him. But you're right. When he stood up and said those things, he became a target. Here, and a few years ago, we had a documentary, which, gee, I wish I could remember the name right now. Hopefully you can help me on this one, Bashtian. But a young female filmmaker in the US made a film about the men's rights world, okay, and then the activists and so forth. Cassie J, I believe her name
Cassie
is.
J, the red pill. I actually know quite a few people in that movie.
There
Yes.
you go. The red pill. Thank you for that. Now, I had the pleasure of speaking to her, and that was an absolutely wonderful young lady. And I love the fact that she started out, she had the idea of, she was against men's activists. She was, very much a strong feminist. So she actually went out to write and produce a documentary that was quite damning to these people, and then ended up becoming the greatest advocate for them. Now, here in Australia, you did mention the difference between Australia and the US. And I love my country. I love it very, very much. But I'll tell you what I really don't like. I don't like the weakness of men. And men in Australia have become very weak over the last couple of decades. In the media, in the corporate media, there's obviously, there's independent media like ourselves, and there's the corporate media, the machine, which is, fed financially from above. That machine attacked Cassie J like you could not believe.
Yes.
Like she was some sort of a portrayer of hate. And when you watch that film, it's actually like a film that's so eye-opening for so many people. And I sat there with men and women, and a lot of women who just went, I just didn't know, and that's what we're having this conversation for. So people know, that people see that these things are not equal. I'm not sitting here and being anti-women. I'm not sitting here, promoting hatred towards anybody. In fact, I'm a big make love, not war kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
And I've been a single dad. I've been also a stay-at-home dad with 6 beautiful children. I've seen what life is on, if you like, both sides. Okay. And it just blows I find that an incredible privilege. It blows my mind that here we are in this day and age where this divisiveness and this hatred towards men is just, it is so strong. It is just getting worse and worse and worse. Our politicians are buying this because they're buying votes. That's what they're doing. Certainly in our case, we have the Labor Party over here, which is equivalent to your Democrats, right? But I don't think anyone's equivalent to your Democrats. There's an awful lot of mental illness in there, let me tell you. And I suppose I could say the same here. But getting back to our point where we sort of started here is the fact that this creates a system, a legal system, where perjury, where lying to get what you want has just become the norm. We call it here, and I'm sure many places in the world, we call the false claim of domestic violence, we call it the silver bullet. And lawyers recommend it on advocacy groups promote that in a big way. If you go into court as a woman and you lie, you will not be questioned on it. In fact, the laws in Australia don't even allow cross-examination from the person being accused. Absolutely insane. So we've got 2 countries here, US and Australia, which theoretically you're innocent until proven guilty. Theoretically, we have due process. Where is it?
Yes, and that's another good point. Okay, they're trying to, since they're trying to create what's called misandry, pretty much to dislike the hate of men. They're trying to worldwide it, right? They're trying to weaponize the legal system. Okay, people will say, oh, what do men have to be worried about? Okay, but then you just pass the death penalty for a crime that's majority false accusations towards men. You're trying to make it legal to sexually mutilate for a crime that is majority false accusations or a lot of false accusations against men. Okay, and that's the thing. The whole system has been weaponized. Funding, criminal, left and right, honestly, working together. Even in America today, for instance, they'll play off each other in a way. Is what you'll see a lot of times. It's not about what's best for men and boys. They'll protect women and children. Well, boys are children too. I mean, men deserve protection too. But they don't see that. They see a divide. And the other thing is there's a lot of money. For instance, the number one thing, if you look up something with pedophiles on the line right now, is like the number one thing searched. They know this. So they're going to run with it, even if it's not true, which is horrible, something like that happening to a child. But they're going to run with it and they're going to use it to elevate their point, and that's what they do. They're feeding off of this cancer and spreading it rapidly, just spreading it and spreading it and spreading it. And it's like, how are we ever going to get any better?
Yeah, well, there is a little bit of positive in my eyes. I see that, okay, centre-right governments are starting to take hold of the world again. And centre-right, I make no apologies for my politics. If I was living in the US, I'd be a very, very proud Republican. I think that, if you, and again, we've got divide there, but that doesn't mean, and I joked before, but I mean, it doesn't mean I hate Democrats. It doesn't mean, that I'm anti them. I just want some common sense and I want equality, right? And when you're finding that you've got a world where there isn't equality, then what do you do? What steps do you move forward? Now, we need the political class to understand our point of view. We need the political class to understand, because let's be frank, the political class, they care about votes and votes only, right? It's very much a narcissistic population there, and they want to keep themselves in power. Now, if they know that there's votes in people like ourselves, people who actually believe in genuine equality, then guess what? The tide changes. Whereas the situation currently is, oh wow, we want to be able to force a false narrative down through the media. People are going to have that idea, and then therefore we're going to pull. And certainly in Australia, the big push is to get female and immigrant voters. Right, that is the big push, because that keeps these people in power. So it's just so dishonest, mate. It really is.
Yes, and it's kind of like a multi-step, process. For instance, they'll send men to war. Like, watch, I guess in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe before that, you're going to see a big war try to kick off, because numbers are starting to get more even with men and women with, not drafting. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to kill off a bunch of men. They're going to have the world filled with feminism, and then men have no way to defend themselves, no vote, no nothing. That is something else that needs to be looked at, because in a society, let's say back then, men need equal votes regardless. But if you had, let's say men went off to war, women didn't, whatever, you still had love for men. So it still worked. You know what I mean? No one was treating men harshly. But now it's a whole different field. People are almost trained to go into politics to weaponize hate towards men, to run off it. I mean, I seen a politician today out of Alabama running off the hatred of men, and it's like, it's a nasty, nasty habit, man. And we have to reestablish people, right? We have to understand, everyone's going to go differently. Some people are religious, some people are not, okay? But we just need an equal plantation we can all stand on. So we have the choice to go. Personally, a lot of conservatives will say they want families come back together, but there's too much of a divide. But I think we can still get families coming back together. How we do that is we make everyone truly equal rights, equal protection, equal care, in this world. And with that, when people aren't scared to come together, because people are too terrified to get married nowadays, we can break down that system.
Honestly, it is incredibly terrifying, the whole concept of marriage right now, because why would you get into something where you have a far greater, it's like, okay, if you're going to go gambling, okay, this literally, relationships have become a gambling situation where you've got a far greater chance of loss than you have success. So you go into something that you're probably going to lose. And in a man's case, why? And I've been married twice, so I'm a slow learner. Okay. Now, why go into a relationship where, in my case, and the case of millions and millions, tens of millions of men, where what do? You lose your assets, okay? You lose your home, you lose all those sorts of things. But most terrifyingly, you lose your beautiful children. Now, that happened to me. I haven't seen my children in a decade. 10 years.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, and it's very common. And the funny thing is, all that can happen just because someone decided to leave. You did nothing wrong. You know what I mean?
Well,
And that's the sad
I'll be
truth.
very straight with you. I mean, basically, my relationship ended because my wife decided that she wanted an open relationship, and she wanted to be able to sort of share her seed a little bit, right? And I said no, I didn't want that. Now, what's ridiculous about that is now me not wanting to actually have an open relationship is considered to be domestic abuse. That is actually coercive control, because I don't want to have that kind of relationship. Now, what happened with me is I lost absolutely everything. I lost my children. And based on a lie said in court, it took 6.5 years of fighting and massive amounts of money to actually get to that court decision, where they discovered that there was no evidence, and that was very clear that the accusations were false. But after
Yes.
6.5 years, they went, well, we don't want to affect the status quo. No. Look, if their court actually said reintroducing me into my children's lives would be detrimental to their lives because it would upset the family dynamic, quote unquote. You've got to be kidding. Now, that's, as I say, a decade on, essentially, and that is all based on false accusations. And I don't want to make this about me. I'm using me as the example here because this is an epidemic. This is not a fringe thing anymore. I have one friend in my life, just one, who is under the age of 45. Okay, who basically still has their children, right? One, and why? Because they're very, very wealthy, and good on them for that. Good on them for the good luck and hard work, right? But one, are you kidding me? That is, to me, that is genocide of a society. It's genocide of a culture, and family life is an important part of our culture. So
Yes, and you want to talk about being scared? Walk into a courtroom that hates you. That is the scariest thing in life. You want to talk about being unsafe? Like I said, you think a weirdo on the street can hurt you when it's highly illegal? Imagine walking into the courtroom, the place that's supposed to protect you, can legally ruin your life with you doing nothing wrong. People always tell me, women might be, top, sexual assault victims, which that's kind of evening out though, but they'll say things like that. I'm like, okay, and that's a horrible thing. It shouldn't happen to nobody. But if you think you're so scared when it's highly illegal and everyone's protecting you, I mean, men, women, society, laws on women's side, imagine being a man and walking into a courtroom with the whole world against you. You want to talk about a 100-on-1 fight that you had no chance of winning and possibly losing your life for doing nothing wrong. That's terrifying, man.
That's right. And that's why the sad figure is right now in Australia, and we've got a much smaller population than yourself. So literally your population in America is about 15 times what Australia is, right? And in Australia, 49 fathers per week are committing suicide due to parental alienation, 7 a day. Now, and that is a figure, by the way, which is doesn't include single car accidents, single vehicle accidents, which is a pretty popular way to go for a lot of gentlemen out there, right? So I would say we're going to cut it short now, my friend, but I do really look forward to talking to you again. But I think it's very important to sort of finish on this thought that men and women, we actually need to be here and be there for each other, all right? And when you see somebody who is really struggling, guess what? Put your hand on their shoulder and have a word with them, have a talk, be there for them, male, female, it doesn't matter, because the only way that we're truly going to fix this, the only way we're going to move forward and have a wonderful culture again and families again is if we fix it together, not man versus woman, man and woman.
Yes, 100%, and we gotta believe each other and quit getting distracted by media or a narrative, okay? And we gotta realize this isn't a my country, your country problem. This is a whole world country problem. And where it's at one place, it's like a step process. There's multiple steps. For instance, I would say, I think Australia and the UK are the worst. India's 3. I'd argue United States is like 5 or 6. If you look at all these countries, they're all going down the same path. It's got to change.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. And like I said before, I very much love my country. Very, very proud to be an Australian. But I'm very proud to be an Australian, and I love Australians. But I certainly don't love our government and those who are in control. And just a little bit of a rewind on what you said before. When you walk into a courtroom these days as a man, you're facing the judge, you're facing the opposition counsel and all that sort of thing. But you're also facing, generally speaking, at least 5 other agencies who have been employed and have their financial future totally invested in you being erased from your children's lives. That's the reality. So you are walking in to a war zone where you are massively outnumbered. So there are so many organizations that hide under the name of being not-for-profits. That's the big one in Australia, not-for-profits. They're these LLCs effectively that are there to make money out of other people's pain. So thank you very much, Bashtian. Really appreciate it, mate. We'll talk again soon. Thank you very much for being part of Community Focus.
Have a good one.
Will do.